today's show, Highkin is back on the program. That's right, Sean Highkin of Rose Garden Report is back. He's back, and we're going to talk about the Blazers' young core. Scoot, Shaedon Sharpe, Donovan Clingan. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Joining me now, you remember him from the Rose Garden Report, available in your inboxes over there on Substack, and from Monday's program, joining the show here on a beautiful Wednesday in August. It's Sean Highkin. Sean, welcome back. How you doing?
I'm good, man. How about you?
I'm great. It's been a while since we last chatted. Let's get into it. I think Shaedon Sharpe is the most upside of any player on the team. I don't think that's a super controversial opinion. What does a good Shaedon Sharpe year look like in your mind? Like, what is like the capital G good? What is like he had a heck of a year look like when we get to March and April?
Basically what he was doing in November and December of last year, but he plays more than 32 games.
Right.
That's kind of where, because, and it was actually funny because, that core muscle injury that ended up making him have to have the surgery in February. He had that. I think he first tweaked that abdomen. I think he first tweaked it in the game kind of at that late November, like that Thanksgiving road trip, the game in Cleveland, which was his best game of the season at that point. And then shortly after that, he had his best stretch of the season where I think he had I don't have it in front of me, but I think he had 5 or 6 games in a row where he scored at least 20 points. And
he had 5 straight games of 25 points and 5 rebounds. I remember I did a show about it heading into a game against the Utah Jazz. 25 points and 5 boards averaging. I don't think he hit those numbers, but for a 5-game stretch, he averaged 25 and 5. Like he was hooping.
Yeah, that stretch. And, that was also around the same time that like Anthony Simons started, came back from the thumb injury, and, the two of them playing together started to actually, it turns out that a guy like Shaedon, who's, really, he's not like, they've played around with like playing him as a lead guard before. That's not really his game. That's not what he is. It turns out that when he has a competent point guard playing next to him, he looks a lot better. So, right. When he got to play, which is why, one of the reasons it's too bad that he had the injury when he did, because the second half of last season, when Scoot kind of started to come around a little bit, you would have liked to see Shaedon out there with them, because if those are the two guys that you're, building around this whole thing around for the future, you want to see them actually play together a little bit. So with Shaedon, he started to look a lot better kind of in that, late November, mid-December, before he kind of started to run out of gas with the core muscle thing started to kind of get to the point where he eventually had to have surgery on it because it was, limiting how effective he could be. If he could, take what he did for that 4 or 5 weeks in the middle of, last winter and do that for a full season, that to me, that's a successful season for Shaedon.
Yeah, he was playing too many minutes that stretch. It was playing like 40 minutes a night because they were beat up.
Choice. That's the thing. Like that's the thing that was so like what choice did they have? Because that was like when Ant was still out.
They had a choice to play Jamari Bouye. That's the choice they had, and they chose not to. And he was awful, right? He was super bad, and I think that was kind of
made the choice to play Jamari.
Right, and that was like a weird sort of like front office coaching staff just like missed each other, like 2 ships in the night type of thing. It was like front office like, here, we're going to get you a point guard, and Chauncey tried it for 2 games and Bouye was terrible. And it was like, no, I'm not playing him. And Shaedon played a cajillion minutes. Cause I remember I was at one of those games and I asked Chauncey about it, and he was like, I believe he literally said like, what other choice do I have? And I don't come to enough games to stand up and be like, you got a choice, buddy. But I was thinking like in my head, like, I mean, they gave you a point guard. He's no good, but like you could play him, you could play him 4 minutes or something. But yeah, he was playing too much. And I think his efficiency suffered. Like, to me, if Shaedon gets back to shooting right around league average from 3 with all of his off-ball skills, he's going to be really, really good. Yeah. He didn't shoot as well last year, but I think some of that is just like weird that when he was playing the most minutes, he was just a little too much on his plate. And so it was like, you could see him playing well, it was just too much on his plate to like keep that efficiency up. I think it makes more sense for him to like cleanly play in that starter minute range now, 30, 32 minutes. I don't exactly know what they're going to do with the starting lineup. I think that's like anybody's guess. If I had to guess now, I guess
good idea of it.
I think it would be Ant and Scoot, but I wouldn't be surprised if Shaedon Sharpe started.
I think it's going to be Ant Shaedon and then Denny at the 3. I think the most likely that's the most like because Ant ain't coming off the bench if he's still here. If he's not traded, that's not happening. And you want to. I think at that point, like you want to play Scoot more running the second unit, and you don't want to play him off, because you can't play him off ball because he's not a good enough shooter, and you don't, Ant is most effective on the ball, especially if you also have Shaedon there, like to do some of the off ball stuff. Like if nobody else is traded between now and the deadline or in the start of the season, that's the caveat. I would be very surprised if the starting lineup on opening night was not Ant, Shea, Denny, Jeremy, BA.
Yeah, I think the Ant and Shaedon pairing just makes more sense basketball-wise, too, because I think it's pretty clear that Anthony Simons, Scoot Henderson is not a great pairing. This is a guess with some education here behind it. I don't know if there might be some discomfort both with the franchise and with the young point guard in bringing Scoot off the bench. I think there's a world in which they think it's better for him to build his confidence by starting the game. I'll put it that way for now. But we'll see. I do think basketball wise, it makes the most sense just to play Shaedon. Cause I think you made a great point that he's like, he could play with the ball in his hands, but as an off ball guy, he's probably most threatening, like as someone else to really set the table because he works well off picks. He can cut on the baseline really well. Like he has some skills in the off ball stuff where he actually could be even more dangerous. Let's talk a little bit about Scoot. Our boy Sterling. We'll do that in the second segment.
Sterling Jewel Henderson. That's a pretty strong government name.
God, it's so sick.
And his whole family has pretty strong. Like his sisters are named Diamond, China, and Onyx. That's such a strong family. And then
his brother is Chris Jr. Right?
Yeah, he got the short end.
Chris got robbed. I know he was the first kid or whatever, but he got robbed. Okay, let's talk Scoot Henderson, Chris Jr.'s little brother in the second segment. Join us there, won't you? First, I want to tell you that today's show is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you're always going to find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. All right, still chatting here with Sean Highkin, a Rose Garden Report. Scoot I think Scoot had that stretch the last 19 games of the season or whatever, where he looks like, okay, you can see the outlines of a player. The first bit was bumpy enough that I think the story was already written for those of us outside, for a lot of folks. What are like the sort of like easy things do you think Scoot could do to like get better? What's sort of like the low hanging fruit before we get into like the big picture stuff? Are there some simple boxes he could check to be a better player in year two?
He's got to be a better finisher. That's one of the big things. I think he's so explosive and he's so good at getting to his spots, but the finishing it wasn't where I think you hoped that it would be at that point. And then the other one I think is the shooting, and nobody's asking him to become Anthony Simons as a shooter or Shaedon Sharpe or these guys that profile as shooters. But if he could just get to, and I don't think mechanically there's anything crazy like wrong with his shot. It's just not like. He just has never been a good shooter. If he can just get to where he's shooting like 34, 35, to the point where it's like at least respectable enough that you got to put someone on him when he's out there. Like that's
and they don't go way under every screen, right?
Right,
they don't
exactly.
go way under every screen, because if you go way under every screen, then it's like he's driving into the paint where someone is, gapping him by 6 feet, and he's just driving into someone's chest. And like, it's hard to be faster than someone when they have a head start. So it's
right. But I mean, if you look at like the individual stuff, the playmaking, I think is obviously there. He's such like passing is by far his best skill. He's phenomenal. He needs some like that. That's something I don't think you have to worry about that part of it. And defensively, like I think he's probably too small to ever be like a plus defender, but he competes on that end. He's not, it's not a Trae Young thing where it's like literally like he gets targeted every. It's not like he has, if either the finishing or the shooting becomes, not what it was last year, he's going to be fine. And if both of those things get a lot better, then I think he's going to get closer to maybe what people thought he was going to be when they drafted him. I'm at the point with him as far as long-term projections. I'm not, just because there were so many good guards in the West and that group is so loaded, I don't feel comfortable sitting here and saying, "Oh yeah, Scoot's definitely going to be an all-star in his career," like for sure. Just because there's so many, based on kind of what happened last year, and then also just how many good guards there were. But I am pretty comfortable saying that he's already kind of eclipsed the Emmanuel Mudiay, let's say, comparisons that were kind of thrown out there early. Like I don't think we're going to look back at him in 5 years and say, "Oh, that was like one of the worst draft picks. That was a bust." That was like, I think at the minimum, he's going to be a good NBA player. Whether that ends up being a 6-man long-term, maybe, but I still think I tend to default to he's going to be fine. You land wherever you want to land on what fine means, but I think he's going to be fine.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the curious things is that the Blazers have kind of, by drafting him 3rd overall and being as clear as they've been about what he is, like he's going to get a lot of opportunities. They're going to give him he's not going to be, he's not someone who I would be worried about getting in depth chart trouble. Like Scoot's going to play 29 to 33 minutes a night. And
this year, but like this is a big year for him coming up.
Huge.
Let's say they don't get the number 1 pick in the draft. Let's say Cooper Flagg is not an option in the draft next year. He needs to be good enough for them to not draft VJ Edgecombe or Nolan Traore, the French kid, or Dylan Harper from Rutgers. There's a couple of the other guys at the kind of the top of the lottery are point guards. So it's, kind of in the same way that like this is a big year for Shaedon because next summer he's extension eligible and they're going to have to decide, what they want to do with that. This is a big year for Scoot because he needs to be good enough for them not to think about drafting another point guard next year if they don't get the number 1 pick and then Cooper Flagg's the obvious guy to take there. So it is, even though, they do have a lot invested in him. I keep thinking about something that Joe Cronin said this past year at exit interviews after the season ended. He said one thing that he tells players at their exit interviews is, "My job is to go out and draft somebody that's better than you." That's something he tells guys. He wants guys to come in and compete for their spots. That's something that, you saw, going into, the last Dame year where there was like that small forward starting, competition between Josh Hart and Nasir Little. And then like who, whether it be, with the Scoot and Shea stuff, he wants, guys to go out and earn like if Scoot isn't, doesn't make enough, if Scoot, let's say if the progress that we think Scoot made the last month of last season doesn't carry over and largely translate to the full year, then are we talking about them having the 3rd pick in the draft and looking at one of those guards? I don't know.
Yeah, I wonder because obviously, like we mentioned in Monday's program, like so much of this season is just like they better know what they have, and know what they have might mean that Scoot Henderson.
Maybe you decide Scoot's not the guy, then you act accordingly, or maybe you decide Scoot is the guy, and then you don't look at drafting a guard.
Right, and then it changes the calculation a little bit. Why didn't Scoot play in summer league? Like why didn't I get to watch him play 1 game in Vegas?
I haven't been able to get a straight answer on it.
What's your read?
All I know for sure, he wanted to go. It was a organizational. It wasn't him saying he doesn't want to go. He wanted to go. It was the organization that decided not to. I think it's sort of. I think probably the best. I don't buy into the whole. Oh, they know he's not good, and so they're trying to hide him so that he still has trade. I've seen that stuff kind of thrown out there. I'm not sure. That's not really where I'm at on it. I think they were a little bit spooked by the fact that not just last year, he gets hurt in the first half of his first game of summer league and basically, doesn't have the rest of summer league, but B, like a lot of that summer, but that the exact same thing happened to Shaedon Sharpe the year before. And he lost most of his summer because he also had a shoulder thing. And I think they probably just kind of figured, it's Scoot is going to get plenty of reps this season. It's not really worth it. This is just my best guess. I have not been told this directly. I've tried to ask people, nobody really wants to just come out and say, hey, this is exactly why he didn't play. Me personally, I'm less worried about Scoot not getting the reps. I just wanted to see Donovan Clingan, who I'm sure we're going to talk about soon, out there with a point guard capable of throwing him an end.
Yeah, it's like a domino effect. It not only was it, it was weird that Scoot didn't play, and then it was weird that Scoot didn't play because the other guy you're trying to prioritize was playing with dudes who just absolutely were not NBA quality point guards. It was a weird. To me, I don't think it matters. Like I do not think Scoot playing in summer league
it's very much a July controversy. It's a you can get a week of podcast mileage out of that because it's a thing to talk about.
I got an easy episode, baby. I was like, no, well, look at this,
dude.
roster,
I'm all about,
folks.
but also at the same time, like. If Scoot is struggling in November, I don't think anybody is going to say, see, he should have played at Summer League, or this is
they're definitely going to say that.
People are going to say that, but
they're not going to say that, Sean. They're going to say too good for Summer League, huh? That's what they're going to say. I think there's almost no upside in him not playing one game. Being on the roster playing one game.
If it were up to me, I would have let him play, but this stuff is above my pay grade.
Well, yeah, obviously I don't make any decisions here. I'm just some dude in my basement, but I have strong opinions on this, and I think it's peculiar, and it doesn't like even playing a game or whatever, practicing with Donovan Clingan, like that's not going to change their chemistry in the long run or whatever. But it just seems like a weird decision. It's a weird decision, and when I think when there's weird decisions and people are impatient for you to make a move, and then it's like do a trade, and then Scoot Henderson doesn't play, it's like.
But one thing I will tell you, like one thing I've kind of gathered at this point, we're 3 off seasons into this front office regime. They do not do anything based on what people on Twitter are saying they should do. That is not something that factors into any decisions that they make. Like they weren't going to decide to start play Scoot at Summer League because people on Twitter thought it was weird that he wasn't playing. Maybe I agree with you. If it were up to me, I would have I would have had him play a game or two just to, A, prove that he's too good for Summer League, and B, let him, get a little bit of run out there with Clingan. If it were up to me, I'm on the same page as you, but they are also not going to say, hey, people on Twitter think it's weird, or people on Reddit, or people on podcasts, or whatever the case may be. People are kind of thinking it's weird that we're not playing Scoot. Maybe we should actually rethink this and play Scoot. That's not how they operate.
Yeah, I have some other opinions, but I'm not going to share them now. Let's talk Donovan Clingan, because I think what we did see from Summer League was pretty. Listen, what he does well. He does very well. We'll talk about Clink Kong in the third segment to close the show. Join us there, won't ya? But first, I want to tell you that today's show is brought to you by Gametime, the place for last-minute tickets. Up to 60% off the list price when you get last-minute tickets. It's a place that rewards procrastinators. What I really like about Gametime is that it's super clean app and it's easy to use. You open up the app, make a couple clicks, whatever you want to go see, sporting events, live concerts, comedy, whatever it might be. The venue pulls up right on your screen. You can see exactly where your seats are going to be. You can even click on the seat and say, give me a view from my seat, so you can visualize what it's going to be like if you're more of a visual learner. Plus, what you see is what you get pricing. So whatever you see on the screen, if that ticket's going to cost you $54, it's going to cost you $54. It's super simple. Plus, they got flash deals, last minute boosts. You can even get last minute tickets after the game has started if you really want to try to save some money and you're a true procrastinator. So take the guesswork out of buying last minute tickets. Go download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the redemption code LOCKEDONNBA to get $20 off your first purchase. Again, super simple. Create an account, download the app, create an account, and then use the redemption code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA. You'll get $20 off your first purchase. It's Gametime. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Still a pass versus point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond. You're still listening to Locked On Blazers. Still chatting with Sean Highkin, the Rose Garden Report. Scoot Henderson, we didn't get to see him in Vegas. We did. He was on the sideline. I saw him. And if you went to go to the Panini trading card thing on the first Sunday of summer,
the deli thing that they
yeah, you could have gone.
I didn't get to check that out, but
you could have got a picture with. Yeah, could have got a picture with Scoot, and the gang. But the guy we did see in summer league is Donovan Clingan, the 7th pick in the NBA draft. The offense was a little bumpy, but what he does well, I think he did really well. What were your early impressions of Donovan Clingan, Sean?
He's good, man. That's one where I know that there were, and I think going into the draft, I kind of lean towards thinking the thing to do was to draft, whether, it was Cody Williams, who ended up going a few picks later to Utah, who I know they liked in the pre-draft process, or Saloon, who Charlotte ended up taking one pick ahead of them at 6. I had kind of pegged, what this front office was going to do as, taking kind of one of those higher upside guys. But when Clingan was there at 7, I totally got why they went for it, because they were the second worst rim protecting team in the league last year behind Washington, like in terms of the field goal percentage allowed at the rim. And you have the best rim protector in college basketball, who was just on 2 consecutive national championship teams at UConn, which is a major program. So it's not even he did it, but he had put up these numbers, but he didn't, do it against high competition. Like, it was a pretty easy pick, I think, to see what they were thinking and what they were hoping to do with it. And honestly, he looked, the thing you have to remember with Summer League is that bigs never look good at Summer League offensively. Even like Wemby was terrible his first Summer League game. The one against Charlotte.
He was really bad that first game. Yeah. I remember that.
And it's like, especially, and again, this goes back to, maybe it would have been a good idea to have Scoot play, but especially, for a big, when you don't have any NBA caliber point guards on the roster, they're not going to look good at Summer League. But defensively, the rim protection stuff that you saw at UConn was there. The rebounding was there. Like, I liked his mobility. He could, get out on the perimeter a little bit on that end of the floor. Some of the playmaking stuff that he showed, and especially in that second game where he had the 5
Philly
assists,
game,
like that little dump off pass that he had to Justin Minaya for the dunk, like that. He showed some stuff there, like, so that, maybe that long-term develops into kind of what they had with Nurkic, where, you have a center who's capable of kind of being the, the offensive hub, in that way. I do not buy the 3-point shooting thing. That's something that feels like something that, teams say when they want to hype up a guy. It's like, oh no, you don't understand. In practice, like he's just draining me. Like, he's Steph Curry in practice. He's, I'll believe it when I see it, as far as him actually doing it in a game. But
I would just rather him do other stuff. In terms of 3-point shooting, it's like, I think it's more important that he's a better dribble handoff and pick and roll guy. I think it's more important that instead of 22.5 feet from the rim, he is near the rim to be an offensive rebounder. Like, I just think there's more value to be had. Like, I don't think I'm not going to like boo when he takes threes or whatever, right? Because I'm like the same the same podcaster who has been like begging DeAndre Ayton to take threes.
Yeah,
but DeAndre Ayton shoots 17 footers.
If I was Chauncey Billups, or if I was him, that's not what I would prioritize. Like, if he can, if the finishing improves and he, becomes a guy that can, finish around the basket, which I think he will when he has better guards with him, and is a good playmaker, that in addition to the defense, that's a really good starter. Like, I think it was pretty like the last few lottery picks that they've had, with Scoot, like he played in the G League. And so, you don't know the level of competition he had with Shaedon. He didn't play at all at Kentucky.
Peach Jam.
Total mystery coming into the draft. And even honestly, their last high lottery pick before that, you go back 12 years, was, Damian Lillard. A little bit of a different thing because he was a 4-year college guy. But when they drafted him, there was he played at Weber State. So like, how good of competition did he really face? The Donovan Clingan thing, and I said this after the draft, this is not a draft pick that I think you have to talk people into or you have to sell them on, because what he is. Everybody saw him play at, the absolute highest level of college basketball at a major program in UConn, won 2 national titles. And the things that he was good at in college, it's pretty easy to look at and say that he's probably also going to be good at in the NBA. So I think at the very least, like, he's going to be a good rotation big, probably a good start. I don't think he's going to start this year, because obviously.
Yeah. What's his role? What's his role in year 1, if you had to guess? I
think he is the backup big. I don't know what's going to happen, because WAP is going to have to play still. That's like, that's one. I think so. The Robert Williams thing is really the
I think Duop Reith is the 4th center on the roster if Rob Williams is even sort of healthy. I think Duop Reith is a DNP-CD almost every night.
Well, but Rob is also not going to be able to play most. Like, he's not going to be able to play back-to-backs. He was already not playing back-to-backs last year before the injuries, and now he's
sure. But if he's available 40 games, if he's available, he's going to play.
Okay.
Like, is Rob going to be a healthy scratch over Duop Reith?
I'm not factoring Rob into anything. I'm sure he's gonna play at some point. I'm not long term. I'm not like projecting like Rob Williams like as much. Like Rob's great, love Rob. I'm not, because of the health stuff, I'm not really penciling him in on anything. I do think WAP is gonna have, like, it's gonna be like a situational thing where like sometimes they want more of like a pick and pop. They want a different look. You talk about Clingan maybe developing into a good shooter. They have a big who is a good shooter. Right. So if they is a matchup where that makes sense, I think they put WAP out there. But like, I think Clingan was good enough in Summer League that he's gonna, and he was good enough, and it wasn't in like some fluky way. He was good in Summer League at the things that he was also good at in college. And I think it's pretty easy to project that he's also going to be a good rim protector right away in the NBA. I think it's going to get him on the floor. I don't know how many minutes, but it's going to get him on the floor. I wouldn't be worried about like, oh, he needs to start right away, because he only played like 22 minutes a game last season at UConn. And you're going from playing a 35-game college season to playing an 82-game NBA season against way, tougher competition. So there's going to be some, when you're a guy that's as physically as big as Donovan is. And by the way, I've stood next to Donovan a few times since he's gotten here. He is a big dude. Like he is massive. Yeah. Like you get desensitized doing this as long as we have and being around these guys. You get desensitized to how big some of these guys are. But there's a couple of guys that you look at and you're just like, oh my God, that is a big dude. Like Roy Hibbert is one back when he played that I remember, seeing him up close and being like, oh my God, and Clingan is kind of in that, but the point being, conditioning wise, going from the college schedule to the NBA schedule, and he wasn't like he was playing like 35 minutes a game at UConn.
Yeah, he's playing half the game of college. Yeah, exactly.
Plus, rookie big man always get in foul trouble a lot. So he
didn't foul a ton in Summer League, which I think was a good sign.
But also he's not gonna get those no calls against like Jokic or Embiid.
It's always a safe bet that rookies are going to be bad because the learning curve is steep. Right. And I think he's got some skills that you think you can bank on, but yeah, like safe bet that he's like a dude who has like, 8 fouls per 36 in his
that's going to be
season. Yeah.
His per 36 stuff is going to like, he's going to have like 8 blocks per 36, but he's also going to have like 8 fouls per 36. Like that's going to be, he's going to be one of those guys where
per 36. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So like, I think it's going to probably be like maybe the 20 to 22 minute game.
I would say I wouldn't be super surprised if he plays like 14 so they can figure out how to play other bigs. But eventually, by the end of the season, half the game, I think is a good bet.
But like it's at some point, like they're going to do something with, like, if Rob Williams is healthy enough to have some trade value by the deadline, that's a guy I think they might, look at moving out. So like they're going to clear it up at some point. And
are they? Do you believe in the Two Towers lineup? Are you a believer in the Clingan and DeAndre Ayton playing together lineup? Like a little bit, obviously not like starting, but a little bit of it.
I don't think it's the worst idea in the world to try it out in a season when you're not trying to make the playoffs.
That's where I'm at.
It's like Chauncey, you have to remember, like last year before, like Rob got hurt like 6 games into the season or whatever, but Chauncey tried that with him and DA early in the season. And I think he, like later in the year, and maybe some of this was just availability because so many guys were out, but he played DA and WAP together a couple of times.
Yeah, and then he said he hated it because they got shredded on defense, which I feel like is the same.
But with Clingan, that's not really like he doesn't have the same defensive. He's profiles as a better defensive player than Duop Reith does.
That is definitely true. I will agree with that.
That's so. I mean, sure, try. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh yeah, playing DeAndre Ayton and Donovan Clingan together. Yeah, that's the long-term answer. That's the thing. The Two Towers lineup, that's going to be the focal point of like the next 5 years of the rebuild with Scoot and Shaedon and Cooper Flag. Like, I'm not going to do that. But this season, like when the goals are just on development and they're not trying to make the playoffs, they don't have any like number of wins they need to get to. Sure, try it out. Why not?
Yeah. It's a great see if it sticks type of season. I think that gives them some leeway with all the young guys, with Scoot and with Shea and with Clingan. Sean, would you come back for Friday's program and we can play a little game?
Sure. Yeah, let's do it.
All right, dear listeners, come back. You've heard 2 episodes of Sean this week. It's Highkin week here at Locked On Blazers. You heard Monday's show. You listen to Wednesday's show right now. Friday, Sean's going to be back in the building. We're going to play a little game. Over-unders. Join us for that one. Tell your friends about the program. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.